Good morning, everyone. We are going to call this meeting to order. It is a called meeting and a public hearing of the Del Mar College Board of Regents at 10:31 a.m. on Tuesday, April 12th. I'm going to call roll for a quorum. Regent Garza. Here. Dr. Adami.
Here.
Regent Kelly.
Here.
Dr. Villarreal.
Here.
Regent Bennett.
Here.
Thank you, sir. I'm Carol Scott. We have a quorum and can conduct business. Would you all please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Dr. Villarreal, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please join me in reading the Del Mar College Vision Statement. Del Mar College will be the premier choice for life-changing educational opportunities provided by Thank you all very much. Del Mar College will be streaming the live audio and video from the official portions of our Board of Regents meetings today on the college's website in real time, with the exception of portions of the meeting considered as closed session by statute. We now have the opportunity for anyone to address the board in general public comments. Seeing none, we will move on to our two items of business for our workshop this morning. First, I am going to call to order a public hearing at 10:33 a.m. on our 2022 redistricting plan. So if there's anyone who is in the audience who would like to address the redistricting plan, we'll have those opportunity for public comments in just a few minutes after a presentation. We will do a little bit of a presentation in case someone is running late and has an opportunity to come in and still do that. But with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Rivera to please introduce the presentation part of this public hearing, and then we'll once again call for public comment at the end of that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So, as you know, you have been steadily moving forward to this point. You've been looking and examining your districts for the purpose of redistricting. You've had robust conversations about it. You've had an opportunity to actually in real time look at the maps, make changes to the maps, and see how all that works. And at your last board meeting, you'll recall that you came up with a proposed plan that you wanted to get out for public comment and public examination. That was done. College Relations and IT helped us set up a website that provided lots of information, provided maps for the public to take a look at. It was up, I think, for about 3 weeks. And again, as I understand from Mr. Caputo, a public hearing is not an actual legal requirement, but it makes good sense to put it out there to give the public an opportunity to look at this. There was also an opportunity to provide public input or an alternate plan. No alternate plans were proposed. We received two inquiries off of the one off the email and one a question that was directed at one of the board members. The question that came in via email, you'll find interesting. Somebody wanted to know why Robstown ISD wasn't included in the redistricting maps. So a response was prepared that Robstown ISD is not in the Del Mar College taxing boundaries, and that's why. The inquiry that came up had to do with whether a particular precinct was in District 2. And the maps were a little fuzzy. We corrected that, and the question was answered. So you didn't get a lot of feedback, but those are the questions you got. And so now you're at the point where we've got set up today. This has been noticed as a public hearing, and the public was invited to come today to actually provide input, and you'll be doing that in a second. Mr. Caputo of the Bickerstaff firm, I'm going to go ahead and call him up to the podium at this time. Of course, Mr. Caputo has been helping you every step along the way. He and his firm you knew this from the beginning, are well-known experts, a lot of experience in this arena. It's not, redistricting work is not, I like to say, for the faint of heart. It's not easy stuff. You know, a lot of maps, and I hope Mr. Caputo has been able to make things user-friendly for you. I think given that you all have been engaged, you've had real engaged conversation. I mentioned this to Chairwoman Scott last time, that you all actually pay attention and provided good input. And so you are where you are. We are now where you are today with a proposed plan. Just not to get ahead of ourselves, but after further deliberation by you and any input from the public, that'll take care of the public hearing part. This afternoon, you have an actual action item on your agenda where you can, if you wish, go forward with making a motion to approve and adopt the plan. So that's that in a nutshell where you've been since December. Lots of fine work. I commend you for what you're doing and for the attention you've paid to this. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Caputo, who's got a short presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, President Escamilla, board members. This is the public hearing phase, and as your general counsel pointed out, there's not a legal requirement in statute anywhere that says you have to have a public hearing. But a lot of what we're trying to do is keep this a very public process, and so the firm always recommends having some form of public hearing before you take action to adopt a plan, just to give that last shot for people to get public input in. Maybe somebody has a completely new idea that makes you all go in another direction. Maybe not, usually not. So I'm going to go through a fairly brief PowerPoint to kind of recap where we are, just so it's in the record that we did all this. And then open it up to any questions you may have or any comments from the public. So as you recall, when my partner David Mendez came down in December, he talked about the legal issues you'd need to be navigating through. The main one is the one person, one vote requirement from the Constitution. And that requires that your districts be roughly equal in population, no more than a 10% deviation. We have concerns always about the Voting Rights Act. We don't want to discriminate against anybody on the basis of race or ethnicity in voting, so we have to be careful about that. There's a Supreme Court case that makes that a little difficult, Shaw versus Reno, because we can't make that the primary focus of the conversation, but it is one factor among many. And then we always look at whether or not there's a retrogressive effect, and that's what we're going to kind of work through real quick here. So we use total population figures to do the one person, one vote adjustments to your boundaries. When you're looking at voting rights issues, you're looking at voting age population. The benchmark is how we measure retrogression. Is your plan worse for protected minority groups in an electoral sense than your current plan? And so we look at the 2020 data overlaid onto your current plan and then compare it to the new plan, Plan D, that we're going to be looking at, and check to make sure that we haven't, gone from 3 majority-minority districts to 1, for instance. You adopted a bunch of criteria. This is the list of criteria. The main ones I think that you all focused on was not using your voting precincts instead of census block data, and making sure that certain school district boundaries were respected in the plan, so that there is as much as we can in one or another single member district to give them a focal point for their representation on the board, and then sort of narrowly tailoring the plan. I'm not going to go through all the others, but they're in there. And the plan as laid out by Mr. Mendez in December was to do the initial assessment, which he did, adopt the plan criteria and guidelines, which you did, develop illustrative plans, which I did in concert with you all and my associate Cameron R. Snow, who's online. Once we develop those illustrative plans, there are opportunities for public input. Every one of your meetings where you talked about the plan was a public meeting. Any member of the public could have come and made comments. And as we'll see, since then, you've set up the website that Augie pointed out. You need to analyze the comments, adopt a final plan, which is where we are today, and then implement it and reconfigure the election precincts with the county. So this is the timeline, just so it's all out there. December 14th, you got the initial assessment. You adopted the guidelines and criteria. February 1st, we had our first drawing session where we brought down plans that Cameron and I had developed, Plan A and B as sort of a basis, a starting point for you. You all made changes at that time, which developed Plan C. We came down then in March, on March 8th, presented Plan C. The board continued to work on the plan, interact with each other, and come up with different ideas and approaches. And that's when we developed Plan D, which is the plan that we are looking at today. On March 11th, so a month ago, your website went live that had all this information on it and had a way for citizens to provide input. Today, April 11th, you're holding the public hearing, and then later today you will be considering final adoption. So basically a fairly quick 5-month process. Just for the record, this is your current plan. In map form, this is your current plan's total population figures. You notice the deviation at the bottom there is almost 50%, so well above the 10% required by law. So we did have to redistrict. Your ideal district size is about 64,000, and that's what we worked towards. This is the voting age population figures for your current plan, which shows that you have 3 strong Hispanic majority districts and one that's it's 52%, so it's what we would consider, you know, a Hispanic district, but not as strong as the others. This is what draft Plan D looks like. Key features are that the Calallen, Tolosa Midway, and West Oso ISDs are all, their portions that are in your district are all contained in District 3. The Flower Bluff ISD is all in District 4, except for a largely uninhabited area that is actually in 5. And that's just due to the vagaries of census blocks. We couldn't really break that up. And then District 2 has kind of, District 1 has moved down south into District 2. District 2 has kind of moved into District 4 by and large. The big shift that occurred between Plan C and Plan D was moving Precinct 65, which is along Ocean Drive on the bay, into District 2 from District 4. And here's the statistical data associated with it. You see the deviation is down to a very tidy 4.19%. So your districts are very close to even all the way across the board. When we look at the voting age population, we see that we still have 3 strong Hispanic districts, all of them over 60%, 2 of them over 65%. And District 5 is still a, over 50% Hispanic district as well. So no retrogression from the current plan on this plan. And this is just showing you how the population figures changed and the deviation is within the acceptable limits. So that is Plan D summarized, and I'm available for questions, comments. Cameron's here if you want to completely redraw the whole thing. We can start all over.
I'm going to ask you to go back to the draft Plan D map.
Yes.
And the confusion, the question that I got from a constituent was the difference between the red boundaries and the shaded areas.
Yes.
So I want you to clarify exactly what we're looking at with the red boundary lines and the difference between that and the different shades.
Sure, yeah. So the, and it is a little challenging until you kind of orient on the maps. So the red boundary lines are your current district boundary lines. The shaded areas are the new district boundaries under Plan D. So for instance, you see that within the red boundary, 2 used to be mostly downtown and coming to the south side a little bit, and it had really just one portion of the bayfront area. When you look at the shaded area for 2, which is the orangish color, it has now lost a good portion of the downtown, but it still has the bayfront and then adds more bayfront on Precinct 65 and extends into the southwest just a little bit more. So same thing with District 3. Parts of Tolosa Midway and West Oso ISD used to be in District 1, looking at the red lines. Those are all now completely in District 3. So it's tidier on that side of things. So the shaded is the new boundaries, the red lines are the old boundaries, and the blue lines are the school district boundaries.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Certainly.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members? This time, I'm going to ask if there's any additional public comments. I don't see anyone from the public here. I see all staff. We did receive an additional email the board received. It wasn't an inquiry. It was a compliment from the Republican County Public Election and Voter Integrity group, and just complimenting us on doing the work ourselves and on the process that we've gone through over the past several months. So just wanted to acknowledge that email from the Republican Party Voter Integrity Group. So thank you for that. Any other comments? With that, I'm going to close the public hearing for our redistricting plan at 10:46 a.m., and we will take action on this item during our regular agenda today. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Caputo. Now we're going to go back to a topic from our last workshop that we did not get to finish. And so we want to extend our appreciation to Dr. Christina Wilson for coming back today and for finishing up the workshop that we didn't get to finish last month. So thank you, Dr. Wilson.
You're welcome. Good morning. Happy to be back. Happy to complete this conversation. And this presentation isn't as data heavy as the one that we had in March. So just fair warning. This discussion completes the one that we began last month. Today we will be focusing on Goal 4 of the strategic plan. Believe it or not, we are currently halfway through the duration of our current plan entitled Aspire, Engage, Achieve. Beginning in 2023, we will need to begin the process of developing a new plan for the next 5-year cycle. As you know, each of these 6 goals has established KPIs and objectives. The college also has an operational plan with KPI thresholds, targets, and institutional strategies put into place to attain the goals of our strategic plan. At the start of the planning cycle, we established thresholds and targets for each of our KPIs. As a reminder, thresholds are the college's acceptable levels of achievement, which you can call our baseline indicator. We also established targets, which we call our aspirational objectives for improvement, what we also refer to as our stretch goals. When reviewing the data snapshots, you will see that the thresholds and targets are color-coded, green meaning that the threshold or target was met, and red meaning that the threshold or target was not met. Goal 4, Learning Environments, is focused on providing engaging, effective, and student-ready environments with accomplished and qualified personnel to facilitate learning and productivity. During the March workshop, that went a little long because we had a lot of great information to share, Dean Cody Gregg shared with us how a large majority of student learning took place online due to the pandemic. However, not all of our programs moved online, and in fact, many of them continue to thrive within the parameters of safety requirements. Executive Vice President Lenora Keys would have led the discussion of the next few slides if she would have been able to be here today. Instead, I will be leading the discussion of our in-person learning environments and how they were impacted during the last 2 years. The impact to learning environments due to the pandemic is evident in a variety of ways. The changes that began in March of 2020 and continued through the past 2 years are most visible in our face-to-face courses. The increase in social distancing and the enhanced use of personal protective equipment changed the overall conditions in many classrooms. The faculty-to-student ratios were determined by the size of the classroom and the type of course. Often the ratio was reduced to 1 faculty member to an average of 12 students. The past fall, the ratios increased to approximately 1 to 18 or 1 to 20. However, this still remains low compared to prior years. Large lecture classes were most impacted. However, other programs such as welding could continue with existing facilities. Plexiglass barriers were installed in areas where students would naturally come into close contact with their instructor. And an excellent example of the use of new equipment is in the dental hygiene program, in which students and faculty members were covered from head to foot with PPE, and new equipment was added that drastically reduced the spray of molecules. In the transportation program, the trucks were outfitted with plexiglass between instructor and student. And the student-instructor ratio was reduced from 1 to 4 in the truck cab, from 1 to 4 in the truck cab to 1 to 1. So there were quite a few things that we did to ensure that learning could occur safely, face-to-face. The enhanced use of technology had a great impact on our learning environments as well. Many classes were able to utilize classroom simulators and video recordings in the place of live instruction. The college's parking lots, as you know, we've reported on this in the past, became a learning classroom with added Wi-Fi for students. The remote meeting technology that was purchased and utilized allowed half of students in some classes to attend in person and others to attend remotely. And Microsoft Teams made the virtual classroom a reality. Finally, internet telephony allowed faculty to take their office phones home with their computers. All of these services were offered online wherever they were located, faculty, staff, and students. This expanded flexibility that we gained during the pandemic will continue on now that things are getting back to normal. 2 campus-wide committees met regularly to review COVID-19 conditions and make recommendations regarding health and safety protocols and instruction. These committees were led by Executive Vice President Lenora Keyes and Vice President Tammy McDonald. These committees engaged faculty and students in the process and provided everyone with feedback on the impact of the classroom. There was a lot of dialogue, a lot of learning as we went. I was involved in these committees as well, and lots of pivoting happened due to the feedback of faculty and staff. When we look back over the past 2 years, much has changed. The college has adapted through the use of technology and enhanced safety and health protocols. The new normal seeks to remain adaptive. We're not going to change what we learned, and effectively utilize the remote applications to enhance learning, while also we seek to focus on keeping in-person and face-to-face learning that we know is optimal for student learning. So many of these things you'd heard about before, but we thought it's important to discuss when it comes to Goal 4, learning environments, that there has been a significant impact. The last time we met, you learned a lot about how learning occurred online, but so much of our learning still continued face-to-face. I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions. Okay. Now I'm going to hand the floor over to Vice President Tammy McDonald, who will talk about safety, security, and staff and faculty compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. As one of our objectives of this goal is to provide a safe and secure environment that is conducive to learning. And as part of that, we have our annual safety and security report. The annual safety and security report is presented to the Board of Regents each fall semester. Through data and supporting information, this report demonstrates compliance with the Clery Act and the Violence Against Women Act, which is also on the slide called VAWA. So as you can see with our threshold and our target, we have met that threshold and that target. Examples of prevention and awareness programs. Prevention and awareness programs are also offered throughout the year, such as new student orientation, emergency notifications, and security and safety awareness trainings. Our average state compensation rates. One of our objectives is to recruit and retain exceptional staff. Compensation data for faculty and staff. This is a snapshot in time. And as you can tell, as we look through the faculty and the staff targets and thresholds, we are slightly behind our threshold and our target for this year. But again, this is a snapshot in time. These targets and thresholds were discussed during the faculty and staff compensation presentation that was presented to the board last month in the March workshop. More information will be provided as we move forward with our compensation review and the budget process. And then this was also information that was discussed last month at the workshop, so it tells you what our state rankings were for faculty. Strategies to support objectives include analysis of compensation and benefits, professional development that includes leadership development, and we'll see some of that in the regular board meeting, strengthen internal communications, utilizing a DMC update for employees that was launched early last year in 21, and the creation of the college-wide compensation committee that is serving in an advisory capacity. Any questions? Thank you. Turn it back over to Dr. Wilson.
Thank you. The next indicator that we'll be discussing today is strategic scheduling, which greatly impacts students' learning environments. The college seeks to offer courses at times and locations that fit within students' professional and personal schedules. We understand that our students don't have time to waste. They come to us to get their goals met, and we want to make sure that we're offering courses in the modality and the locations that meet their needs. We want them to be able to build schedules that suit their lifestyles while also allowing them to attain their goals quickly. We are utilizing the services of a company named Ad Astra, which specializes in analyzing course scheduling patterns to increase our efficiency. The information on this slide was shared last time during last year's Goal 4 workshop. And as we continue to transition back to in-person learning for the majority of our programs, and especially as we prepare to open the Oso Creek campus, we will need to rely on Ad Astra's strategic scheduling reports. The next couple of slides are examples of those reports. We seek to understand course meeting patterns at our campuses and at our instructional sites. This slide illustrates our top 10 meeting patterns during the fall 2019 semester on the Heritage campus. These top patterns comprise over 40% of all course offerings during that semester on the Heritage campus. So these patterns help us to understand what's most popular, what our students seek to take, and we want to make sure that we're reducing gaps between these time periods. This next slide illustrates the top 10 meeting patterns during the fall 2019 semester on the Windward campus. Due to the nature of the programs offered on the Windward campus, which require extensive lab instruction, there is a large variation among meeting patterns. So you can see a big difference among the number of course sections and percentage of course sections in the top 10 patterns. These top 10 patterns comprise over 10% of all the course sections offered that semester on the Windward campus. After identifying our most popular meeting times, we will need to go back and make sure that our course matrix, what Ad Astra calls it, is efficient and effective for students to develop schedules based on a variety of options and formats. We want to provide structure with flexibility, and this is going to be more and more important as we seek to help students meet their indicators and as we open new sites.
Just because I don't do math well in my head, so about how many sections are offered, this would be fall of 2019, on the Heritage campus and the Windward campus? So you said the Heritage number represented, the top 10 meeting patterns represented a large percentage, but what's the total number of sections, do you know?
Yes, I do. And I did have it for the Windward campus as well, but unfortunately, I think I left it in my office. Okay. For the Heritage campus, there were a total of 1,359 sections.
Okay. And
on the Heritage campus.
would that be comparable on the Windward campus, or is it significantly less? I just don't know an order of magnitude.
It's hard to say just because the courses offered at the Windward campus are different. As I mentioned, there's a lot of lab sections, a lot of hands-on sections. So I don't know if Dr. Halcom has any insight, and I apologize. I had that note, and I believe I left it behind.
If you'll just get that answer to Natalie, and she'll send it around to us, just
Sure.
to comparison. Just, again, I'm trying to figure out order of magnitude. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. And this is work that we began before the pandemic. And once the pandemic hit and all of our scheduling changed and everything changed, we had to put this aside. But I keep this and I want to report on it because it will continue to be important and you'll learn more about it in future workshops. Any additional questions regarding strategic scheduling? Okay. Let's discuss a final few strategies. I told you, this goal is not as data heavy. You're getting through it pretty quickly. Let's discuss a final few strategies that support Goal 4 of our strategic plan. The college seeks to ensure that our campuses are welcoming spaces for students that are conducive to engagement and student learning. With the support of our Board of Regents, we have new and updated buildings on the Heritage and Windward campuses. The first buildings on our Oso Creek campus will open later this year, expanding convenient access to students living on our city's south side and within the Flower Bluff and additional areas. Also, as I just discussed, we have partnered with Ad Astra to improve our course scheduling processes. With access to better data, we seek to improve our ability to provide students with the courses that they need when they need them. And as I'm going through my notes, I found the missing notes. So when it comes to the Windward campus in the fall of 2019, there were 781 sections. You're welcome. Goal 4 is a very important goal, but as you've just observed, a lot of what we need to report on is narrative-based. You learn a lot about what occurs within our learning environments through ongoing discussions and reports of the board. So now, these next few slides bring us to the conclusion of this workshop. Our strategic plan is a living document, and it is meant to adapt to changing conditions. For this reason, we will be undergoing a review of our current plan with internal stakeholder groups to ensure that our current priorities are reflected in this plan. Please keep in mind that this plan was developed in 2018 and 2019. The whole world has changed. Because of these focus groups that are planned, this means that additional strategies and indicators may be added to the current plan and others removed. This process will begin this month. And before you know it, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we'll need to start working on our next strategic plan.
If we could hold right on the previous slide for just a second.
Sure.
As you recall, during the board action plans, our retreat and action planning process, the board has had discussion about the impacts of COVID on our current strategic plan. So as you're updating to version 3 of the operational plan, while we don't want to get into the operational nature of it, I would like the board to have, for there potentially to be a workshop or a discussion item around that so that we can understand how the current plan is changing, because that, again, that was part of our board action plan, and I want to make sure that there is an understanding at the board level of what those changes are.
Yep, absolutely, Madam Chair. In fact, as part of my own president's goals, it is written in there. As you will see, I've just submitted that last week for you all's initial review. So the opportunity to come to the table and to look at things, to look at the overall strategic plan adjust as we can in the short term, is the way I describe it, and get ready to rewrite for the long term. It's going to be those two things that will bring you the opportunities to do at this setting. Because certainly we don't want to miss out on opportunities of not only making the changes, but making them together. That's how it works. The vision, if the vision is tweaked, the operational approach is tweaked, and so forth. So you can count on a board workshop at least coming soon.
Yes, I'm in favor of that. The board was instrumental in the development of the initial plan. You all have been engaged throughout this whole process. I think it makes a lot of sense to continue that dialogue. Our current plan is in effect through August of 2024, and this process of planning, making adjustments, and improving is designed to never end. Something that we don't frequently talk about as part of the board workshops is that every administrative unit on campus has their own annual plan. This is something that gets more into the operations of the college. But as we think about the focus groups that are coming up and ensuring that priorities are reflected, we're also using these annual plans because they are aligned with the strategic plan and they reflect to us what's important and what isn't. So from the VP level to the director level, also within our instructional units, each of those units have goals, objectives for their own departments that they update regularly.
As well as the support services, all aspects of student services, campus operations, facilities, the whole thing. Everybody has a plan that's tied to it. The very intricate types of plans really occur at the instructional level. You know, that's when you get into assessment of learning and those kinds of things, and it's really, really nuanced and in-depth. That's called our institutional effectiveness plan. Those are the things that we're evaluated by SACS and our other accrediting bodies out there. So it is a massive undertaking that never stops here at the college.
And it's something we don't formally report on because we try to keep the information we provide to you at a high level. We always have many, many things to share with you, but we want to make sure that you know that this work is occurring. And as Dr. Escamilla mentioned, this is something that's required by our accreditor, SACS COC, and it's also quite challenging. As you know, during the accreditation process, we did very well, but this is something that many colleges struggle with because you can imagine having every instructional program, every support unit, every administrative unit constantly developing goals and constantly reporting. It's a lot of work, but I would be remiss if I didn't describe that part of the process because even though you do hear about strategic planning very regularly, you hear about it at the top level, this cycle of continuous improvement is happening within our units.
I just heard this over the weekend as I was doing some side reading. Continuous improvement is much better than achieving perfection.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Think about that. Think about that. Continuous improvement. Continuous improvement means perfection's always behind you. And so that's what we're all about. And the CQI, it's a business model, and it's something that's been adopted by higher ed for, I guess, 40 years now. And we are steeped in it. We're very good at it, too.
And the strategic plan is an instrumental part of that because our units, our faculty and staff, they need to know what targets they're reaching for. So though you hear about some of the main institutional strategies, again, each unit has their own unit strategies to support what happens at the division level and then the college level. So all of that information will also inform the changes that are happening to the strategic plan. So it's not just the meetings that will occur. Those meetings will confirm some things that we already know, but through the meetings that we will have planned with internal stakeholders and the information that we already collect on an annual basis, we'll be refining our operational plan and probably also our formal strategic plan as well. So as I mentioned already, believe it or not, we're halfway through the planning, or not the planning, the implementation piece of this current cycle. And while we work to adjust our current plan, we must also start the process of developing a new one. So you all have your workshops on our KPIs. Well, anticipate some future workshops on the next plan. In the spring of 2023, we'll begin the first step of the process, which is called assessing the landscape. During this stage, environmental analyses are conducted to determine the most pressing anticipated impacts to the college. We already know that we will seek to align with the priorities of the state's new strategic plan titled Building a Talent-Strong Texas. And last month, we discussed the ways in which that plan will differ from 60 by 30. I anticipate there will be different metrics, different data that we will need to collect, and different priorities. We will want our new plan to reflect the new state's plan. We will also seek to incorporate goals and strategies specific to strategic enrollment management. This has always been important, but in light of COVID and what our students have struggled with, we want to make sure that we are incorporating innovative strategies for both recruitment and retention. Finally, we will also develop formal goals and strategies regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. These concepts are within our strategic plan as our values, but I know this is a priority of the board to ensure that the board is bringing forth these concepts, making sure we're solidifying these goals, and this is something that we'll seek to do within our new strategic plan as well. The development process will continue through the spring of 2024, and our target is for the new plan to be formally adopted by our Board of Regents by August 2024. It seems like a long time away, but y'all are busy people. It'll be here before you know it. Oh, before I talk about the next workshop, are there any questions about the plan development process? Okay, moving on. The final workshop for this academic year will be on goals 5 and 6 of our strategic plan. We had this workshop at around June last year. I think that may be where it's penciled in at this point in time, but those are our final 2 goals of this review process. And that brings us to the end of our workshop. Thank you for your time this morning. Again, this goal is not as heavy on the data, but it's important to describe what's happening and the things that we are doing to impact our learning environments. And also it gave me the opportunity to describe that we're already thinking about our next plan. So I'll look forward to our next workshop this summer, and also to provide an update on how our current strategic plan will be updated.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Any other questions or comments? Really appreciate the information and to our continued discussion.
Thank you.
Board members, we're going to take advantage of the opportunity to go into closed session and do some of that work now to use our time efficiently between now and the 1 p.m. regular meeting. So I'm going to give a heads up to staff to turn on Teams in the closed session room so that we can have Regent Bennett participate if he is able. But we are going to go into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 regarding pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offer and the seeking of legal advice from counsel with possible discussion and action in open session. And under Texas Government Code 551.087 regarding discussion or deliberation of information received from a business prospect with which the college is conducting an economic development negotiation and/or the deliberation of an offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect with a possible discussion and action in open session. The time is 11:14 a.m. We'll take about a 5-minute break and meet in the closed session room. All right, we have come back from closed session at 11:52 a.m. There is no action coming out of closed session, so we are going to adjourn our workshop at 11:52 a.m. and we will reconvene our regular meeting at 1 p.m. We are adjourned.